and there we go, and we'll get started. Okay, so by the end of this session, hopefully you'll be able to find out what things you could be doing to help you prepare before an interview. So what things can you research? Where can you start looking for things to research? How you will be prepared for that interview. Then we will have a little look at how you can answer some questions. What types of questions might you be asked, and how you prepare for that as well, and what types of examples you can also use. And then finally, we will finish the session understanding what other what other things that we can provide. Oh God, my mouth is gone now. What other things we can provide as part of our service for you as well. So things like our online support that we've got for you, and we can do mock interviews and so on. So I'm going to show you how you can access all of those areas as well. Okay, so let's get started. So first thing is an interview. An interview is not just a usual, every interview is the same. There is lots of different types of interviews, and you might have already had some, you might have had all of these different types of interviews before, but there is a wide range of them. Now, I've put a few on here, and I'd just like you to say either on your microphone or in the chat box, have you experienced any of these types of interviews? And if so, which ones have you already had a go at? So generally, we tend to have more of the traditional one, which is just the one-to-one person being invited in face-to-face. Or have you had to go doing a video interview? Video interviews have got a lot more popular over the last couple of years, obviously with the pandemic and everyone working at home. So this is something that's becoming a lot more popular still, and it's staying that way a lot of the time as well. So video, yeah, a couple of people have mentioned video. Any others? Has anyone had a panel? Has anyone had an interview in front of a panel before? And if so, how many panel members were there? I have actually been to one with, I think it was 6 panel members, which was, you know, quite an experience. I've never had 6 panel members before, which is a large amount. And it was a very daunting experience at first because they didn't tell me how many people were in there. So if you're not prepared for that, that is something that, you know, is something that if you haven't already experienced, it's something to maybe become a bit more familiar with. These things can happen as well. So we're going to have a little look at some of these areas as well, and how you can be prepared for them, because no matter which one you have, it doesn't really matter as long as you've prepared yourself and you've done your research about the organisation and you know what you're going to say. It doesn't matter what kind of interview type that you're going to be undertaking. Okay, as long as you're showing yourself in the best way and what you can actually do. Okay, so how do you actually prepare for an interview? So what are the things that you currently do before you have an interview? And again, if you can just pop that into the chat box, or if you want to turn your microphone on, just let me know. What things do you currently do before an interview, if you do anything? Hopefully you do. I'll just give you a minute to think. Yeah, so look at what the company is about. So whether that be on their website, or if you've got them connected on LinkedIn, maybe have a little look, follow them that way. Look at them on Twitter, see what they've got in the industry, what is their latest news, what's happening with them. Anything else that you might do? So I'm going to go through a couple of things, and you're probably already doing some of these already, but there might be some things that you aren't doing which would really help as well. So things like these 4 main areas. So we've already mentioned the organisation. So that is really good. Get to know the organisation. What are they about? Who are their competitors? Who are their clients? What is it? Is it a service? Is it product? What do they do? And where are they based? Is it local? Is it worldwide? And so on. As much as you can about them. And the website is usually the best place to go. Or if you do know someone currently working for that organisation as well, that is really useful to get some inside knowledge as well. That was really good. The next thing you can do is look at the job itself. So you should always have the person specification and the job description. Now, these 2 areas are key to look at before an interview, and even before putting your application and your CV together as well. So make sure that you do go through them. I always recommend getting a highlighter and going through any of the key areas or key skills that might be required before you go for the interview as well. Have a little look at those different areas and start to think about, have you got those skills, and have you got good examples to match that if they come up in the interview question as well? So getting a highlighter, going through them and kind of starting to think about what examples that you have from a range of different things that you've done, whether it be university or work experience and so on. The job description is the same really, so go through it, see what skills there is and matching that with that person's spec as well, because these are the things that they're going to kind of ask you. On some person specifications, it will actually have a bit of an indicator on the side what types of questions they might ask. So sometimes it will say A on application and I for interview. So if it does, this is something, an area that you can focus on that a little bit more, because you know that those types of questions might come up within the interview. Okay, and also you can have a little look for additional advice and guides, and sometimes some companies will also send this out as part of their recruitment process. So if you have asked to see the person's spec or the job description, if it isn't already advertised, they might also send you some additional information over as well via email if you've applied that way, or it might be if you're applying through the company website, they've already got that information already up on there. So it's definitely worthwhile having a little look and seeing what other advice there is that they're already providing you as well. So another thing is how you can prepare yourself. Now, this is an area that can often be overlooked and people think that they're already prepared, or maybe you think that you're never quite sure on how to prepare, or you might not be ready for certain questions. And the best way to do that is to really have a little holistic approach of thinking about you and some self-reflection. So think about your skills and what you do have. And if you are really uncertain of this, we do have a strengths assessment on our Career Zone 24/7. So I will send you the link out to that. And this is a really good way of starting to identify what are your strengths and getting you to think about what those qualities in you are, and any areas of further development as well that you can also look into. When you are thinking about your skills, like I mentioned earlier, use a range of different experiences. So try not to stick to the same example. So if you have got previous work experience from a variety of places, you might want to just do a couple of post-it notes to give you some examples, just to remind yourself. So when you are putting this prep together, you've got a range of different things that you can dip in and out of, and make sure to have 3 strong examples. So if you know that, for example, the role that you're going for is going to heavily rely on teamwork, get maybe 1 or 2 examples that are very, very good, easy for you to remember, that are going to be showing you in a really good positive light as well. Having those 2 examples already in the back of your mind is going to make it a lot easier for you during that interview process. Also need to think about your knowledge. So what is it that you know? Have you got any gaps within your knowledge? Is that something that you need to maybe start to address a little bit before the interview? If that's going to come up, maybe you can say that you're already in the process of developing that area and so on. And other things that you can prepare. Things like travel arrangements. If you're getting the train, make sure that you do know the train times, or if you're getting the bus or any other public transport, things like that. If there's going to be any roadworks, if you're not too sure on how long it's going to take for you to get to a certain place or where to park, all of these things are very quickly resolved if you just put that little bit of time in beforehand, and it just makes you more or less nervous on the day as well. No one wants to get into a fluster because they've missed the train before an interview. So it's definitely worthwhile planning ahead with those situations. And even your outfit, lots of people are starting to think, oh, it's a video interview, it's okay, but you still need to plan that outfit and make sure that you are still ready in person for an interview, whether it is that you're going in for an interview with a company or via video. Still have that outfit and have yourself ready and prepared, and you'll feel better as well. If it is a video interview, you will feel, even so, I'm ready for this interview and I'm in interview mode. And the last one is the potential questions. Make sure that you have thought about these questions, and like I've already mentioned, have a little look at the job description, and you can start to pinpoint what types of things might come out in some of these questions, what things they might necessarily ask you. So we'll go through some of these a little bit later on, just for the generic areas as well. So any questions so far? Is there anything on here that maybe people aren't already doing, and this is something that's being highlighted that is definitely something that you want to go forward with in future? Or are you quite confident you do a lot of this already before an interview? Any questions so far? So what things are employers looking for? So interviews aren't there to trick you. That is not what they're about. An interview is to make sure that they are hiring the right person for them, to make sure that you're going to do the job and you're going to do that job well, and you're also going to fit in with the team and with that organization. So it is really, really important for them that it's not just about the person who is having the interview, it's for the employer as well, to make sure that they are selecting the right person. So first of all, they're looking, can you actually do the job? Have you got the right skills, the qualifications? Are you able to do it as well? So it's not just about on paper, oh yes, you have that certain degree. That's great, but can you actually do that job, and will you want to do that job? Have you got the motivation to make sure that, yes, I'm going to get up, I'm going to get to that job on time, I'm going to put all my effort in? You've got the drive, you want to succeed. It's all about that aspect of it as well. And finally, are you going to fit in? Do your values align with theirs? Will you fit in with the team and the organization, and so on? So it's not just about having a bit of a trick and thinking, oh yeah, we'll go with this one. It doesn't work like that. It is to make sure that it's best for both parties. So let's have a little look at the types of different interview questions then. So this is the main area that people often, obviously for obvious reasons, is the most nervous about, is what are they going to ask me? How can I be prepared? Things like these 4 areas, so usually can come up. So we've got like motivation. So this tends to be a bit of an opening question. So why have you applied for this role? What is it that's drawn you into our company or our organization? What do you like about this sector? Those type of questions are motivation questions that they're trying to say what it is. Are you going to be motivated? Do you really want to work for them in that role? So this tends to be a bit of an icebreaker kind of question as well. Other questions, more like competency-based questions. This is where it's asking you to then describe your experiences. And these experiences tend to relate to what is in the job description. It's to see that you can actually have that ability to do the role, and maybe to see if you've already previously done some aspects of it already. So these are a really good way of getting them to figure out, can you actually do the job as well? And then there's hypothetical questions. So what would you do if? So what would you do if in this situation, and so on? And, you know, this is again to look about your experiences, to see if you can relate it to things that have possibly happened, and predict things that could happen in that role in the future as well. And finally, you could be hit with a curveball question. Not everybody does these, but some do. Often this tends to happen again at the start as a bit of an icebreaker type of question. Things like, if you had to describe yourself as an animal, what would it be and why? And it's just to get you to, but they say it's to kind of to get you to relax, but it's a really good way of showing that you have also done some self-reflection, that you're aware of yourself, you're aware of your skills, your strengths, and so on. And it's a way of relating that to that question as well. So it's not just saying, oh, I would be a cat. Why would you be a cat? And you've got to give that, because I am da 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 da, and you would give your reasons for that answer as well, to say what your skills are and what your strengths are, and just relate it to that as well. Has anyone ever come across a curveball question before? Lots of employers like to use the biscuit one. It's a pretty tough one to answer that way if you haven't done any self-awareness and any self-reflection on yourself to be able to answer that. So if you haven't thought about that already, I would definitely recommend having a little think about it. Even if a curveball question doesn't come up, it's just being more self-aware and knowing what it is that you're good at as well, and what you enjoy. So having a little look at some common interview questions, things that tend to come up are, tell me a bit about yourself. Now, as easy as this one sounds, it can be pretty difficult. As I've mentioned, if you haven't done some self-reflection about yourself, answering this one can be pretty hard. What types of things do you like? What are you involved in? What are your interests? What are your hobbies? And so on. So it's going to make you stand out. You want them to remember you, but without going a little bit too over the top as well. So we don't want no little fibs going on, no little lies in there. Make sure that it is all true. Tell them all about you. Show your personality as well. Other things could be, why should we hire you? Now, again, this one can often be difficult, especially if you're not a person who likes to big yourself up, but you have to be confident. You have to make sure that you say why you are that right person for that job. And again, with doing some self-reflection about yourself and assessing your skills and your strengths, you should know what you're good at and why you're perfect for that role as well. Tell me about a big mistake. Not everyone's perfect, but we do have things maybe that have happened that you've had to deal with. And again, this is something that they might ask you, they may not ask you. So it's just being prepared for these things as well. Sometimes they might ask for some negative experiences, but you have to put a twist on that to show them how you've learned from it and how you've dealt with it, and how it turned out to be a positive experience. Again, why do you want this job? What are your strengths? What are your biggest weaknesses? With your biggest weaknesses, again, through the Career Zone 24/7, if you have a little look at the strengths assessment, if you're not already aware of what your areas for development are, this could be something that could support you with that a little bit more and give you some tips on how you could possibly develop within that area. Things that are a weakness type of question, I would always think about it being something that you're currently working on. So you are aware of an area, but you're currently in the process of developing that area. So it's really positive if you're aware of it, but you're already actively doing something to overcome this area as well. Tell me about a time when you went over and above to get a job done. So again, it's more experience related. So it's thinking about a range of different examples to use. So you're not just using the same example over and over again. It's showing a range of your variations of your different experiences, whether it be from university, work experience, volunteer work. Use a wide range of all of the different experiences that you have. So often people will say to me, oh, I did this for 2 weeks. Can I use something within that? Yes, definitely. Any experience is good experience to have. Okay. Has everyone heard of the STAR technique? You can just let me know in the chat box. If you haven't heard of the STAR technique, I'm just going to talk a little bit about this. This is a really useful technique to use, whether this be within interviews or on your CV and application forms. It's a really good way of just being clear and concise with your answer and avoid going off track a little bit or forgetting bits. So I know myself, sometimes I will often forget what was asked as part of the question, and then I will just carry on and carry on and carry on. So to help me, I use the STAR technique, and what that will then do is just make sure that I stay on track and I'm answering everything as I can more concisely and more clear as to what the actual example is that I want to give. So to use this, it stands for S is for situation. So for example, this is where you just give a bit of an overview of what it is. So just introduce the situation to them. Then T for task, so describing what you had to do. So whether it be you were working as part of a team, it could be then describe the task that the team had to complete and maybe what was expected of you. Then A for action. Now this is the main important part. So this would be where you explain everything that you did as part of the team. You can also explain how the team worked together, but more so about what your role was within a team. That is if you're using a team activity. It could be that you're using a different type of example, but this is really, really focusing on what you did and how you did it. And then finally, R for result. So making sure that you've finished that whole example off by giving us the result. What happened at the end? Was you successful? Did you achieve your goals that were set out at the beginning, and so on? Is there anything that you've learned from this? Did you have any challenges at the end that you were successfully overcome, and so on, like that? So it's a really, really useful way during an interview to just pull yourself back and think about, have I answered that in a STAR technique? And it is a really, really good way of just making sure you haven't missed anything out and you've given the whole example as together rather than bits and bobs from lots of different stages. So has anyone used the STAR technique before, whether it is in their application or as part of an interview? Anyone familiar? Okay. I will send you this out after the session as well, just in case you want to go back over it as well. So another area with interviews that tend to be a bit of a challenge is nerves. Now, this is completely normal. If you didn't have nerves before an interview, I'd wonder why, because everyone has that feeling, everyone gets the butterflies, but you can deal with this as long as you have prepared thoroughly before your interview, so you know what examples that you want to use during your questions, what might come up. You've thought about all of your different skills, your different experiences that you're going to share, have a little idea of maybe what questions they might ask, and you've researched the organisation well, then you have prepared thoroughly. I would recommend getting a good night's sleep the night before. So go to bed nice and early, set your alarm to make sure that you're up the next morning, and get a good breakfast as well, depending on what time of the day that your interview is. Try not to be self-critical. Even after you've been to the interview, don't walk away thinking, oh, I should have done that, I didn't do this, I should have said that, why did I say that? Try not to do it. You've said what you've said. Or before you go in, you know what you know, and be confident. You really do need to be confident before you go in. If you can feel your nerves coming up, try some relaxation techniques. So whichever ones work best for you, whether you do tapping or you're going to do your breathing, there's different techniques out there. So I would research into those and see what works for you beforehand. But do something, obviously, something that's not going to be noticed while you're sitting in a waiting room. If it is in person, you're not going to get up and start walking around, but it could be just like a simple tapping technique on your wrist, or just your breathing in and out. That is usually just something that can just calm your nerves a little bit more. I always say as well, try to avoid caffeine if you can. I know for me, I drink a lot of coffee. So for me, that is something that will get my heart going even more, and I would probably get even more nervous. So try to avoid the caffeine if you're a big caffeine drinker like me. Have some time to spare. There's nothing worse than feeling rushed before an interview. So if you are public transport, make sure that you go a lot earlier. You don't want to feel like, oh, I've got to get there, I've only got 5 minutes to get there, and panicking, and then arriving all flustered. Or even on a video call, make sure that you're logged on and you're prepared, you're all set up, you've cleared the area, and so on. So make sure that you've definitely got your time to spare as well. So these things are very important and all have a knock-on impact on your nervousness. So by making sure that you've addressed all of these areas, hopefully you'll feel less nervous on the day as well. So some other top tips. Body language is really important. Make sure that you're in view of the camera as well if you're on the video. Body language, I talk a lot with my hands. Again, that might be something that could be off-putting for some people, so maybe try and keep them a little bit less. See how you're sat, don't start slouching, things like that as well. When you're in the interview room, keep a good posture. Smiling's really important. Make sure, I don't know about handshakes nowadays, wait and see, make sure if someone's offering a handshake, or if you don't want to, again, that is fine, just give your reasons for that. Ask questions. There will be time at the end for you to ask some questions, and yes, please ask them a question. I would recommend not asking any questions that you already know the answer to. So for example, if the question you're asking and that information is already on the website, then don't ask it, because it just looks like that you haven't done your research. But if you've got other questions that you might want to ask that you can't find that information, then feel free to ask that question. That is okay. Some video interview tips then, because these are getting a lot more popular. Like I said, make sure that your eye level is there for the webcam. Put your camera on beforehand, just check it before you go on to the interview. Check your lighting, try to have a plain background behind you. Make sure that you've taken your microphone off mute, really important. And just have no distractions. Obviously, if there could be a knock at the door, just excuse yourself, just say, sorry, I'm really sorry, I've just got to get this, put yourself on mute, pop your camera off, and then come back and just explain and just carry on. Everyone's used to this now. It's not that it's something new. We all might have a knock at the door, or something's happening, or there could be builders in the neighbour's house and things like that. So apologise and just say you'll be back shortly, and then just let them know. I'm sure people will be fine with it. Like I've mentioned, professional clothing. So professional, you don't need to be suited and booted, depends on your industry. It depends on what type of role that you're going for. But smart attire is really, you should still have that even during a video interview. Any interview is an interview, so you should always dress smartly. And I always recommend, wearing it top to toe. So please don't just sit there in a pair of shorts or your pajama bottoms, because if there is a knock at the door and you do have to stand up, then it doesn't always look good, and it does still happen. Some people see that and some people laugh about it. But if it is an interview, I just always recommend making sure that you're fully top to toe in your interview attire. Okay, so where can you get some additional support? So we've got all of this information now that we can work with. We know what types of questions that they could potentially ask and how you could answer them, what experience you've got, but how can you start to think about this a little bit more? So we have got some digital resources. So I've already mentioned Careers 24/7. This is really good to have a little look at your strengths assessment. So getting you to think about what your strengths are, what skills you're good at, and also the areas that you can further develop as well. So you can have a little look on there. There's also something called Interview 360. And this is really good. If you haven't had to go at it already, I would highly recommend it, especially if you haven't had to go video interviews or you're not very confident on them. Interview 360 is a video interview. So it's a mock one for you to undertake. No one sees the video except yourself. You can watch it back and see how your body language is, how your eye contact is, and how you answered the questions. It can give you preset questions, or you can type your own questions in, and it is timed as well, and it will give you instant feedback. So no one else gets to watch it other than you, but the computer will generate that feedback for you, because it will pick out your keywords and so on that is related to that question, or several questions. If you prefer not to have a go at that one, we can also do some live practice interviews with one of our careers and employability advisors. So that can be, again, it could be over Zoom or Teams, or you might want to come in and do it in person as well. So you can arrange for that. Just please make sure that you do email in to arrange that though, because it depends on our availability and if we're booked up. So if you know you have got an interview coming up, then please do it sooner rather than later so we can support you with that. Okay, then, any questions so far? Anything that I've not covered that you'd like me to cover or you want more detail on? If so, you can pop your microphone on, or if you just want to type it into the chat box. No, while you're thinking, just to see if there's anything there. Okay, we do have some more sessions coming up. So we've got a couple more today and tomorrow as part of our final year future week. Our Grad Cafe is currently on in the Student Life building. So if you fancy going in for a cup of coffee, it's on till 1 o'clock, coffee and a cake over there. And you can just talk anything careers, find out what's coming up or what you want to be involved in or what you'd like to do in the future. Or if you haven't already signed up for our LinkedIn challenge, we've got that coming up today at 2 o'clock. And you can find out more about LinkedIn and how you can use it and be part of the challenge and in with a chance of winning a £50 Love to Shop voucher if you sign up to that. So we've got a couple of things coming up still today as well. So if you do want any further support, we have got our Career Zone 24/7 on our website for the link, or just drop us an email or give us a call and we can help you with whatever it is that you need as well. So if there's no questions, thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a lovely afternoon. I will send out these slides and the recording and some other useful things for you as well on interviews. I'll send them out in a follow-up email to you. Okay, so thank you for joining us. Bye.